Superstock 1000 rider for Aprilia, Lewis Rollo, joining us on the show for tonight. How are we, Lewis?
I am good. You?
Yeah, not too bad. What's keeping you busy at the moment?
Just busy with work. Now that the racing season's finished, we're flat out working up in Scotland, just trying to get people moved back into their houses for Christmas.
Yeah, and quite a season it's been for you as well. Just run us through how your 2020 season has been.
Yeah, it's my second year in competition Aprilia, and we managed to finish third in the championship, get a win at Oulton Park, a second place, a second again at Donington, lead quite a few races through the season and managed to be consistent and up the front. And to be fair, it's been a mega year for me, being in kind of the title chase and finishing top three. It was kind of my next goal, and to manage that, we were really happy with it.
Yeah, did you expect to be as competitive as you were this year?
Well, last year we had quite a good year as well, finishing sixth. We got a win. We were up the front fighting for podiums, but just that wee bit was missing. And I think this year we got some more testing, and being a second year with a team, that was something I had never done before, and it kind of let you hit the ground running. And with the shorter season, I think it definitely was one of our advantages, and to get going and be at the front straight away, fighting for podiums, it made the season a bit better, but also as well to be consistent through the year with settings we had from last year. It just made it a bit easier to manage to clinch third in the championship.
Yeah, and you say, I mean, this year you had that extra little bit that you were perhaps missing last year. What would you say brought that on?
I think just experience. 21-year-old, another year's experience under my belt. The team have taught me so much as a rider. We know the bike's good from when Joe Colley or Andy Reid was on it. They obviously won races fighting for the championship on it, so we know the team and the bike's good enough. So I think me as a rider just had to keep improving and learning. Obviously last year with people like Richard Cooper, Taylor Mackenzie, Lee Jackson in the championship, you're learning a lot off of them riders. And then at the same time battling with Chrissy Rouse, Tom Neve, Tim Neve, people who are wanting to try and move forward, and they're learning all the time and getting stronger. So this year we knew it was going to be just as hard as ever. A shortened season, everybody wanting to go for it. So it was some mega racing, and some of the races was just crazy. Ex-world champion Danny Kent in it battling Billy McConnell, just lots of different kind of riders all trying to win races, and it was some exciting racing all season.
Yeah, and you know, the Stock 1000 class is always a really interesting one to watch as well. It's always one that, you know, in myself, I always make sure I go to watch that, whether it's trackside or on the player. What's it like in a race like that when you're up against, you know, riders like Danny Kent?
It's at the start of the year, Danny was in front of me at Donington, and he had started on pole position, but he came back, and I can remember watching him when he raced in Moto3, and in Moto3 he used to drop back and sit in 15th position, just at like the back of the leading group, and then he would work his way forward. And I seen him come back to, I think it was 5th, and I was sitting in 6th. And I knew exactly what he was doing just watching them, but I knew that Stock 1000 was just a dogfight, and he couldn't do that. So I thought, I need to move forward here. So I managed to do that. But it is, sometimes I've been in the situation where I've been trying to be smarter and keep my tyre for the end of the race, or we've looked at it and thought we're really consistent doing these lap times, but then all of a sudden in the race, people have managed to find another 0.2 of a second, 0.3 a second, and move forward. So you have to do that as well, or you're just going to get beaten up and fall back in the pack.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, 2 years now with Ian Newton's team. What's it like working with a team like Ian Newton's, where obviously you've come through the Aprilia Super Teens and the Aprilia 450s? What's it like then going back to working with those same people that you sort of started your career out with?
Yeah, well, it was a nice thing. When Ian phoned me 2 years ago asking me if I'd be interested in a ride, it was quite nice because I knew I was going into a team where I already knew the people like I'd be working with. So Ian Newton, obviously team owner, Myra, his wife. There was Richard from Maxton, Alex from the 450s, Louis Dawson from the 450s, Will Hodson. So even the mechanics I used to race against when I was younger. And then moving forward, just getting to know the guys obviously last season, it then helped going into this season. And people like Johnny Blackshaw, Adam Jenkinson, they've been in Stock 1000 for numbers of years, and the experience they've got, them helping me moving forward, it's helped me a lot as a rider. And that's definitely one thing I've looked for kind of my full career, is just having someone beside me and helping me, guiding me in kind of the right direction. And it's definitely something I kind of want for the future, being with a nice team, because it definitely helps having good guys in your corner to help you obviously fight for podiums, wins and championships.
Yeah, and then I mean, obviously, your relationship with the teams is an extremely important thing. So, would you just say it's helped you with your racing, coming back straight into a team where you pretty much already knew most of the guys?
Nah, definitely. Like Ian, I've known since I was 12-year-old in the Aprilia Super Teens. When I won the championship, he gave me a 450 to race the next again season. So for him to sponsor me a bike when I was 13-year-old to then race in the 450 championship, and I was on that for a couple of years, finished fourth in the Thundersport championship, won a couple of Scottish Super Twin championships on the 450, and then moved up to 600. But Ian's always spoke about trying to help young riders, and instead of bringing someone back from superbikes, putting them on the bike to maybe win the championship, he wants to try and bring up and coming riders onto the bikes and teach them. And I think it's helped me a lot knowing that he wants to help me obviously move forward, but also progress in my career. And if I do move on or move with another team, move into superbikes, he's behind me 100% and just wants the best for me and the other riders he helps.
Yeah, no, so I mean, Ian's done a hell of a lot in the scene for young kids. I mean, Aprilia Super Team's been around for a long time. But before I ask you anything else, I think I'm just going to let Jay come in, because I think he's got something he'd like to ask you.
Hello, Lewis. How's it going, buddy?
Not bad, yeah.
Yeah, not bad. I just want to start by saying you have the best sounding bike on the grid. Do you ever get bored of that sound?
Well, I turned up to my first test and Ian Newton was like, if you're not wearing earplugs, you're not sitting on the ride, you're not racing it. So my first test, I rode it without earplugs and the thing just sounded unreal. Obviously coming off a Ducati Tri-Options bike that sounded like a tractor onto the Aprilia. Just such a nice, smooth bike, just the power delivery. I raced a ZX10 in 2017 and the Aprilia is just a totally different bike, and the sound of it's just unreal. You can still obviously hear it with your earplugs in, but as you get used to it, it's not the best. But then when you watch, like I watched my teammate David Allingham at the start of the year at Oulton Park on a test day, and he came past and it was in the wet and the bike's spinning up and you can hear it just trying to get traction. And it's a mega bit of kit and I love the bike. it's obviously last year getting used to it. It's the best 1,000 I've ever rode. And then obviously my second year on it, just kind of gelling with the bike and getting more used to it. It's a beautiful bike to race.
Talking about, you just touched on the wet there. Obviously, these 2 seasons you've been on the Aprilia, a lot of your really good results and performances have been in the wet. Do you feel comfortable in the wet? You seem to make it look really easy. I think it was your first year. Was it Alton Park or Brands Hatch? You came from quite a way back and won the race by a good gap in the end.
Last year, well, my first podium in Stock 600, I'm sure that was in the wet at Alton Park. And I don't know, people say it's the Scottish side of it.
Yeah.
In the rain, it's a hard one. I think it's just pure luck. It's kind of who stays on. It's hard. You're on a 200 brake horsepower bike. You've not had any testing in the wet. The team's not had any time to set up electronics, traction control, anything like that. So you kind of go in on a blank canvas, and I think it's a lot down to kind of the rider with your hand in your throttle and having a lot of trust in the bike. And I think it's where I can kind of go in, and you're more down to the Aprilia as well, such a smooth, nice bike to ride. It just makes it a bit easier to ride in the wet. But I've kind of got a wee system I go through in my head to go into the wet, go out, try and get a clear track, get to the front as quick as I can, not watch people have moments. As soon as I think you see someone have a moment, it kind of plays in your head. So I like the wet. You just go out, have fun, slide about, and hope for the best. And half the time I've come out quite lucky, and we're on the podium, if not winning races.
Well, if you move up to BSB and it starts raining, I'll definitely be putting some bets on you to win the race.
I think it is good, and I think when the rain comes, people worry about it, but I think it's the same for everybody, and you have to just go out and head down and go for it. But I think the superbike, that is one thing I would love to have a shot of. Obviously, with no electronics and then in the wet, I think it'll be quite a fun bike to try and tame.
Cheers, Lewis.
Obviously, I mean, going back to the bike a little bit, I mean, you've said how much you love it, and you know it's a brilliant bike to look at and to listen to and to watch. What's it like? Because obviously, I mean, it was just you and David. What's it like being one of the only Aprilias out there?
Yeah, it's a hard one. Last year, Levi Day was my teammate, and he was actually a really good teammate because we raced each other in the Ducati Tri-Options. We both moved into Stock 1000 at the same time. We both kind of had the same goal. We were always kind of around about each other on the timesheets and then in the races as well. Same with David at the start of this year. I knew he was going to be strong. Moving back from superbikes, the experience he gained from being in superbikes and then from his previous years in Supersport, I knew they were good guys to kind of learn off, both of them older than me, more experienced. So it was nice to have teammates like that and kind of chase them, learn off them, have them to work with. And it is hard. It would be good to have more Aprilias on the grid because they are a good bike. Ian Newton gives as much support as he can to other people who do turn up with the bike. And I think people underestimate them, to be honest. I think they've won a world championship. They came out in 2011, the bike, the model, and they've improved over the years. And if you think they were V4 way back then, and it's only now the Ducatis have started going V4 and talks about Yamaha, Honda maybe in the future going to V4s as well, but the Aprilia is a nice narrow bike, more like the 250 Grand Prix bikes. I think in stock 1000, that's one bit we may be struggling, is where we want to carry that mid-corner speed. The BMWs, Kawasaki's, they stop mid-corner and then use the torque just driving out. So it's hard. On a clear lap in qualifying, you can get your mid-corner speed, keep the bike flowing, and then all of a sudden in the race, the gearing's too long because you've been carrying that mid-corner speed, and now you're having to stop mid-corner, or even if you're heavy on the brakes, whereas in qualifying you've been letting the brakes off, running the speed through, then in the race when the BMs or whatever stop mid-corner and you have to keep the brake on just that wee bit longer, you then start having moments, and it is quite hard racing people like Billy McConnell. He goes into the corner, stops, and then fires it out. And it's kind of the opposite way that I try and ride the Aprilia. So it makes it hard in some ways, but then other times it can play in our favour.
Does it change your sort of race strategy then, having to sort of almost avoid other bikes mid-corner?
Well, it's my qualifying last year was just appalling. If I could get in the front 3 rows, then I'd be happy. I think just experience, learning how to put that one lap together, getting all the bits clicked and getting that lap time that you have to get on the front 2 rows. And this year's definitely helped. Second year with the bike and team, we've managed to kind of start the weekend off stronger, and we've had a few front row starts this year, and then more in the front 2 rows, front 3 rows, more consistent. And I think getting a good start at the start of the race, getting up in that leading group, definitely helps us. But if I could get maybe into the lead and get a free lap, or like kind of Oulton Park, I managed to get away with Chrissy, get past them, and then I had clear track so I could run that mid-corner speed, and especially on a track like Oulton Park with the chicanes and fast flowing kind of circuit, I managed to hit my apexes and pull away and managed to win the race. And circuits like Thruxton, Silverstone, when you've got a nice big wide track, you can let the bike run that extra metre wide and maybe run round the outside of someone who's trying to square their bike off and cut the corner tight.
Has there been much development on the bike? Because obviously, I mean, it's a bit of an old bike now. Yeah,
well, last year, the bike's still the same this season as it was last year. Over the years, it was more, I think the bike started off in 2009 with 150 brake horsepower, whereas now it's just over 200. They've changed the headstock angle, back linkage. We're obviously allowed to change the electronics to kit ECU in stock 1000 now. Some rule changes were made, things like that. So the bike's changed differently over the years. And obviously now with the new Hondas coming out, the new BMWs, possibly this new Kawasaki, you don't know how these bikes are going to change or how much an advantage they're going to have. But you look at the lap times Danny Buchan was doing 3 or 4 years ago on an old ZX10. We're still doing the same lap times now. So the way I look at it, there's so many manufacturers, so many different riders, different setups, different teams, and we all go around the track within half a second of each other. It's so close, and I think it's down to your relationship with the team, the bike, and your confidence, how you're going and moving forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, also looking into sort of next season, and future, will we expect to see many upgrades come in the way of the Aprilia? I mean, I know looking over to the CIV Championship with Savadori, we've seen them over there experimenting with things. I think they've even had wings on the bike. Can we expect to see anything like that coming into VSB, to your knowledge?
Well, Salvadori's actually been running the 1100 over in the Europeans. So he managed to get in the rules because it was in the Superbikes. He's managed to run the 1100 but have it restricted on the revs or the power, just so they were on the more modern bike that Aprilia now produces. It's obviously a lot of money for a manufacturer to design a full new bike just so it's more competitive than stock 1000. It's a hard one. It's obviously a good looking bike. It's people who like Aprilias, they love them. It's kind of like a Ducati, man. They buy the bike because they love it, love the sound, love the way it looks, and I don't think Aprilia would really change anything. That's why they've obviously built this 660 and designed it off the RSV4 and put the kind of same bodywork, fairing shape on the 660.
Yeah, and quickly, before we go, what can we expect to see from you next season? Any plans?
I'm talking to a couple of teams just now. Obviously, Aprilia, I've got a relationship with them. I love the guys, love the team. So the amount they've taught me over the last couple of seasons has been amazing. But obviously we're at that sharp end now. We've finished top 3 in the championship, and my next goal would be to try and win stock 1000. And there is another couple of teams talking to me, maybe seeing if I'd be interested to obviously have that title fight on their bike. And see what we can do. But I've got nothing sorted yet. I would love, obviously, every rider's dreams to move up into superbikes, but I think it's being in the right place at the right time with the right team, and I want to make sure I'm ready. And I think right now I've still got a wee bit to learn, and I think another year in stock 1000 would definitely help me. And if we can win the championship, then it's something that you've kind of got in your bag. And if you do move forward and you're a champion, I think it kind of helps you in a way, but also just that extra year's experience. So then put me in kind of maybe the right direction if I did get the chance at going to British Superbikes.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a very, very mature plan you got there, and we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on your announcements and where you do end up going, whether it is Aprilia or wherever you do so. So I think thanks a lot for coming on. Does anyone else have any questions for Rollo?
Yeah, I've got one more. In stock 1000 over the years, a lot of it has been down to you've got to be really consistent to be there at the end of the season with your results. How do you find especially what Sam Lowes has just realised last weekend by being in it at Valencia, how do you find it in races where you might think, I need to go for this win, or hold back and just go for the points? How do you find that level playing field with not crashing sort of thing?
That's what I've kind of found hard this season, because last year the guys at the front were more experienced. Richard Cooper, Taylor McKenzie, Lee Jackson, they've all been in superbikes. They've all got they've all been British Stock 1000 champions. So when I was sitting in 4th place behind them, following them, I was learning off them, watching them, trying to save my tyre for the end of the race. But where I was getting excited and putting the power on, they were kind of being clever and just knew that they had to set a pace, and then at the end of the race they were always stronger than me. And going into this year, that's one thing I worked on, but then turned up at round 1 and it was all just boys wanting a dogfight and handlebar to handlebar. And at the first round, I came together with Matt Truelove and Richard Cooper, and me and Matt Truelove ended up coming off. I was sitting in 5th position at the time, and at the end of the season, going into, at the second last round, depending on my results, I could have actually fought for the championship. And it's not until after the season you think, if I had stayed on in that race at Donington and hadn't had that DNF, I would have actually finished second in the championship, because Tom Neve unfortunately came off in the last race of the year. So it is hard. It's such a
fine line
as it is, because you have to fight, and you make one mistake and you could drop back to 5th or 7th place. But you look at Chrissy Rouse, he stayed consistent, he stayed on the bike, he never crashed out of one race this year, and I think that obviously just gave him that little edge on everybody else. Tom Neave, he won the most races, got the most podiums, but then he had came off, and the other races he had were just further down the field, whereas Chrissy was more consistent, podium each weekend. And I think that's what I need to work the next year, is just being consistent on the podium rather than being consistent in the top 5.
Cheers, Lewis.
Yeah, points make prizes. You've got to be in it to win it and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, excellent. Thank you for coming on, Lewis, and telling us what your season's been like. And hopefully we can keep in touch over the winter and maybe get you back on and talk about some more of your successes next season as well.
No, definitely. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, excellent.
Cheers,
Thank you.
Right, this is the Superbike Show. It is Motorsport Radio, and we will continue.
The Superbike Show on Motorsport Radio.
I'm Ryan Vickers.
Hi, I'm Ben Curry.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Ray from the Kawasaki Racing Team, and you're listening to Motorsport Radio.